Hong Kong protesters shot arrows and hurled petrol bombs from barricaded university on Sunday at police who fired tear gas and water cannon. "We are not afraid," said student Long. "If we don't persist, we will fail." Civil engineer Joris, 23, told Reuters, "We are fighting for Hong Kong." I also read an article university students are using handmade trebuchet and now they are using arrows. They seriously went full medieval. But seriously, this one keeps on escalating. The outcome of this is very uncertain. I don't think the government will fold. Edit. Okay, most people in reply are either talking about trebuchets or the protesters not prevailing. As much as I hate it, one outcome is certainly more likely than the others. The outcome of this is very uncertain. I disagree. As much as I hate to think it, the outcome is 100% certain. Only question is how many will the Chinese kill to achieve it. The CCP threatens to cause a massive ripple effect if they kill as many as possible. Especially in the age of handheld cameras. Videos will leak for decades. Sadly, we all know what is happening there. Even in mainland China it's not a big secret. The trouble is it's being spun that the protesters are evil rioters who want to destroy China and deserve everything. The name of the game isn't covering up that something happened. It's controlling the narrative. We have a bingo, unfortunately. We just say bingo. Why is this even called a protest anymore? What part of this doesn't fit under the definition of civil war? The fact that the protesters haven't called this an official independence movement, and that's probably the only thing stopping the actual military from getting involved. Civil wars are rarely about secession, and usually about control of the central government. This is more of a straight-up rebellion. So far to my knowledge the protesters haven't really gone on the offensive. The HK authorities, and by extension the CCP, still has full monopoly on violence within HK. Due to this, I don't think we can call this a rebellion, much less a civil war. Once the protesters actually start offensively moving against the authorities with a clear objective of bringing down the established order, then we can start talking about rebellion. It'll be pretty hard to go on the offensive against one of the world's strongest militaries without guns. Unless someone lends the protesters a lot of firepower, I don't think this will ever enter the rebellion stage. So basically, this isn't going to end well for the protesters. Typically even a well-equipped rebellion needs outsiders bringing supplies in. The American Revolution could not have succeeded without the French, for instance. With Hong Kong, the protesters 100% need a group of very powerful but regular trading partners, so they won't appear suspicious, to actively supply them with firepower, training, medicine, armor, and a means of winning hearts and minds. If they don't get those things, then it won't be able to escalate. I can't see how this can end well now. Both sides are in too deep to pull back without losing face. HK has a lot more to lose than just losing face. PRC is worried about losing face. HK is worried about losing kidney. Hong Kong will lose everything if they don't prevail. They are cornered and fighting for life and liberty. If they are gonna lose everything, might as well hurry. Last pushes before it ends, so you can say that you did something. Petrol bombs and arrows. That is about a French level 3 protest. There are 16 levels of French protests. What is level 4 through 16? I'm curious. Well, level 16 is where a Louis loses their head. The other levels involve something about cake, strongly worded poetry, setting wildfires, setting up checkpoints to destroy wine trucks, and sacrificing a run-all to the Lord of Light for +2 individual combat skill. Well, level 16 is where a Louis loses their head. Wait, what about the spontaneous popular dismantling of a prison, and housewives marching with artillery? I honestly kinda blame the glorious keyboard warriors and journalists who send their thoughts and prayers all the time to pump up protesters, and give them false hope. If you look at Reddit you'll think everyone is supporting HK protesters, but in reality a majority of HK citizens don't like violence and riots, even though they don't like China as well. That's why they need to block the road, and destroy MTR to force people to strike. In short, this is a stupid war and I feel sad for both sides. People in the West generally do support HK. There's just very little we can do realistically. Maybe sanctions against China. And I'm not talking just USA. The Americans alone are not powerful enough to make it work. It would have to be Europe, Australia, UK, Canada etc., along with the USA. But, even sanctions are dangerous. The USA and UK sanctioned Japan in the 1930s, and we know what happened after that. I fucking hate those people sit on comfortable couch, and encouraging protesters to use more violence, as if they somewhat want to see Tiananmen Square 2.0. Okay, I get you support democracy and such, but let's be realistic, is this approach really good for Hong Kong? The ones that suffer most are HK citizens in the end. It's disgusting how people on the internet encourage them into thinking they're Harry Potter or Hunger Games heroes fighting against oppressors. If any other country gets involved, that's WW3 and the end of life everywhere as we know it, because of my freedom and democracy. Redditors are literally children that can't understand things aren't black and white in real life and life isn't Harry Potter or some TV show where good guys win. Yes, this is not a video game and there is no way to restart. I already see all protesters are trapped in PolyU now, tired and hopeless. Those childish Redditors who encouraged violence should be ashamed. They are in a catch-22 scenario. Escalate the situation, get violent, risk condemnation from the international community, and losing support for your cause, which was most likely China's plan all along. Start using force on peaceful and calm protesters, while ignoring their demands. Make desperate people more desperate, create a volatile mix and then say, see, China good, protesters bad. Keep calm and peaceful protests and achieve nothing. China doesn't care, China won't give in. The foreign newspapers will see the same all being the same all, and stop reporting while the international community, shit scared of China's economic power, is afraid to do anything other than saying well now China, that's not very nice. Either way, China will most likely have its way, but don't for a second think these people weren't pushed over the brink to violence by China. They are tired, they're afraid, they have their backs against the wall, and are done with laying down. They really need to learn more from Gandhi. These poor folks have nothing to protect them besides a tiny amount of journalists who are being injured and or removed from China for various reasons. More importantly, China is well armed, not tired of conflict, and isn't fighting for control over land that's thousands of miles away. Gandhi's ways probably won't work here. Arrows? Hong Kong is going medieval. And no major media is covering this. Edit, I wasn't aware of the coverage in Europe. I'm from India and no one is talking about it here. I'm sorry I worded it so confusingly. They are using the resources they have available. HK doesn't have generous gun laws like the West and they literally have no weapons with which to defend themselves except improvised ones. Not saying you are, but I really wish the netizens would stop romanticizing this situation with the fantasy/sci-fi references. These people are fighting for their lives and war is never amusing to those caught up in it. Like the West. What other Western countries is it easy to get guns in? Is America the only country in the West now? In terms of firearm ownership, European laws are far less strict compared to Asia. I take foreigners to the range all time in American, Europeans usually at some point, did some form of target shooting. Asians had only seen it on TV. That being said, we don't really have a gun culture over here. Never past the age of 12 have I thought owning a gun would be cool or necessary, quite honestly. Different kicks for different sticks. Everyone's gun culture is different. I have some comment way down on my profile where I kinda gloss over the larger differences between gun cultures with a regional breakdown. Europeans, it's always a sporting tool for skill. It's basically just a niche hobby for them. Asians, it's almost pure novelty and basically only something the upper echelon participates in. You're more likely to see archers though. Errant arrows and petrol bombs considered lethal force. Ice and shooting your own citizens considered lethal force. If I'm spreading tear gas, non-lethal, and spraying you with a water hose and you retaliate with bows and arrows, lethal, and petrol bombs, you deserve to be countered with lethal force. Water cannon is lethal. Any non-lethal weapon can become lethal if used improperly. Which they almost always are. Apparently not in Hong Kong though. The sad thing is that this is not going to end well. The students using arrows and molotovs now is just legitimizing more violence from the Chinese. I don't think the Chinese government will hesitate for a second if it comes down to a new massacre. They will kill a lot of people from Hong Kong to maintain stability in China. Killing 4 million when you are in control of another billion is nothing. I hope things will work out for HK, but right now I don't see how. Sadly, they don't seem to have any other choices. The Chinese government doesn't seem to have the inherent morality or sense of embarrassment needed to be cowed by international peer pressure to back down from purely non-violent protest in the same way people like Gandhi and King prevailed against the British and US governments respectively. It's a sad situation. The only other possible alternative I can see at this time would be for them all to leave Hong Kong, but that isn't really possible or acceptable considering that it's their city. There's no international pressure though.